my advice is just like go for it and take big swings again and again. I think being an entrepreneur is learning how to get kicked in the nuts over and over again and say, I'll have another.
All right, everybody, welcome to Clarity. And this is a place where we're finding focus, rediscovering a sense of purpose, and really learning how to reconnect with life. And today we are accompanied by my good friend Daniel Andreu, and he's a Pensacola local artist, a muralist. And he's making big strides in the mental health world as well, combining those two things. Man, how you doing on your side over there?
I'm doing fantastic. That introduction is probably be a little more beyond my scope. I'm just a creative, but high praise. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. It's true though, because I saw a recent mural that you're working on right now, where you're working with a local autism behavior spot. Is it the ARC Institute or the Behavioral Center?
Yeah, so they do a lot of things. They do um developmental challenges for youth in their pediatric program, and so they do occupational therapy, speech therapy, and some behavioral things as well.
Yeah, and it seems like you often collaborate with people like that within the mental health world or healthcare in general, and you tend to have that kind of background. Like, when I met you, Uh, again, you were starting to get your murals out and making that transition, but you really worked in healthcare for a long time, and it seems like you kind of merged those worlds a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it was just natural. It just happened that way, right? It just like what will come out in artwork, creativity, business, a product is just what we're genuinely passionate about. So it just happened to kind of be a culmination of those things, and I couldn't tell you that that was on purpose.
Yeah, sometimes fate takes us in interesting directions, and it's a beautiful thing. And you were specifically, I think you were more of a college athlete earlier on, and then you made this transition into art somewhere along the line. So, how did you even get into art in the first place?
So I've always done both, and to me, they've always been synergist, like movement, like murals are very labor intensive. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot of energy to them. There's a lot of yeah, and I always drew. It was always a downtime from sports, and they always kind of went hand in hand. And I've also treated art as like, brought some of that discipline and kind of, I call it like worshiping your craft. Like athletes that really love what they do, they will spend a lot of time working on that thing, working on that craft of their jump shot or backstroke or their, in golf, it's your irons or whatever. It's just that those details when you really love something. So to me, it's just about getting lost in the craft of it. So to me, those things are not separate at all. They kind of go together.
Man, that's beautiful. It sounds more like an experiential thing. You're really connecting with life as opposed to segmenting it. It's not about art or sports or health and wellness. It's all kind of one holistic thing, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I think that that's important because I think that it's good to have all those things, all of our wellness, our life blend into each other and do what feels right. And I think the discipline part comes with committing to that and committing to, okay, here's the vision. So if that aligns with what I'm doing, okay, then I'm going to work on, I played baseball. Okay, I'm working on infield drills today. Or, in my sketch pad, I'm working on this today and finding the enjoyment and getting lost in those things. And it's not really work. Then we're just playing all the time. Then it's all play.
Hmm. I think one of the first things that sparked our conversations, and it's bringing me back to some of our first conversations that we had, were on Stoicism, the Stoic philosophy, and that's really showing up to the tedious work sometimes. It's okay, life's gonna be painful, or we're gonna die eventually. We might as well show up, put in our best effort, no matter how much pain is associated with it sometimes. And it sounds like you're kind of embracing that Stoic philosophy a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So Stoicism is just a fancy philosophy for being present, controlling what you can control, loving your fate, loving your destiny, working with the cards that, you've been given. And to me, that's like when I can get grounded, then it's not really, it doesn't have to be work, those tedious things. Then it becomes worth it, right? If I'm stressing out, hard work is stressing over something that may not be important to us or a task that's been given to us from,
Mhm.
maybe in a corporate job or it could be a stressful setting, but passion is playing, not really working. There's some work involved for just, Marcus Aurelius talks about doing something you love so passionately that you forget to eat.
Mhm.
And to me, that's where that separates was I'm working probably twice the amount of hours as I did when I was in corporate, but it doesn't really feel like it because it's number one, it's mine, and number two, showing up, what might look like discipline is me just showing up for the craft and doing those quote unquote tedious things, which is really the payoff is immense. I think that's the difference between stress and passion.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned like this external influence. We can work hard for somebody outside of us or someone, corporate entity. But when it comes to disciplining ourselves and the creative act, truly creating something from a place that we care about, then it's a totally different game. We actually want to do it, and it seems like we have unlimited supplies of energy to do that thing that we love. It's a cyclic cycle. Work doesn't feel like work. It truly feels like you're playing, and you want to do it. That's beautiful that you found that. Yeah.
Absolutely, and absolutely, and then I think that so it what I'm not doing is I don't want to trash the corporate world because my experience helped me to learn how to take ownership of things, how to work on teams, how to set measurable objectives and goals. And then also the beautiful thing, and I don't think there's any other industry like this. Maybe there is. But like if you consider like emergency services or like firemen, I would put that in that category. But healthcare, people are really working together as a team to help. It sounds cliche, to save lives, improve the well-being of a community. And I think that to me, I did learn that like vision, having a bigger vision beyond myself. So I don't want to come across like, oh, corporate is bad and all these things. Like I just happen to just keep following what I love to do, and it's a continuation. It's not and we can't escape to other things. I think part of I would be it would be remiss or lost if I didn't say that no matter where we are, no matter where I'm at, I will have clients that are difficult. I will have times that are difficult. There will be jobs that we have that are difficult. We have to come from a place of power and have ownership over our mission, no matter whether it's by myself or on a team or 9 to 5.
That's really well said, and I appreciate you saying that because sometimes I do maybe demonize the corporate world or a 9 to 5 or something like that. I think that's an easy trap to fall into. Uh, I was originally trained in the healthcare field as well, and because of how much stress that I saw the doctors under and the nurses under, and uh, not true health showing, I got very frustrated with it. So it's easy for me to, like I said, demonize it a bit. I appreciate your perspective, genuinely. It is about teamwork for all of us showing up and working together.
Absolutely. And I also think it's a microcosm of the world itself, right? So if I don't like my job or who I'm working with or my clients, that's just that might just be a representation of how I see the world. And it's really about me taking responsibility for my part in the world and how I show up. So it's not always the setting. To the going back to stoicism, it's not the setting or the context. Like we most 99 100% of us haven't chose where we were born, our name, our ethnicity, what country we live in, and so our genes, nature versus nurture, and it's up to us to make the most of it and to decide that it's meaningful. So I think that's something that we each need to do, and it's easy to be like, "Oh, my boss this or my client that or politics this, the president that." And as although those things are important, it's important to have a sense of justice, belonging. It also is easy to not come from a powerful place when we don't take responsibility for our part in the world. So I try to gear it back towards myself no matter what setting I'm in.
Man, that's a really wonderful message to hear, and I think it needs to be heard in the world more often. It's easy to externalize. Okay, maybe the government will fix it for me. Maybe the job will fix it. But truly, it sounds like for you, it's really coming about from personal responsibility. And was there a time where you really decided, like, I wanna do this? You mentioned your art career, where you wanted to switch over careers a little more. Was there a time for you where you really embraced that personal responsibility?
Yes, I think it's every time that I've made art and public art because it's out there for the open to be experienced. I can't hide it in my studio. So every time I go to put something on the wall, it is for the public. It is in a public setting, and I think about how people will interact with it, and then also my name is on it. So it's kind of tricky in the sense of I wouldn't say tricky. It's a beautiful thing. It's a kind of a relationship in which I'm putting something out there, but it's really not for me, but it's from me. So it is for me in that sense. So yeah, I every time I paint something publicly, it's like, wow, people are going to interact with this. So I have a duty to do my best on this wall.
Man, that's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And another question that I have was, you became involved somewhere along the line with local businesses and organizations in Pensacola as well. And you mentioned like a community duty or a sense of, because you're becoming more personally responsible, you can serve the community through that place of personal responsibility. At least that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of that blended while working in healthcare of just the organizations that I was getting involved with in terms of mental health or youth and youth mental health and or the arts, and I think a lot of those things blended together. So I was fortunate enough that I've had positions that gave me more autonomy to be involved with the community, and so I was able to see just how important and how vital that is. But at the smallest level, I think one thing I want to do a really good job of is like knowing my neighbors, like my literal neighbors in my neighborhood, because I think that if I can be responsible for them, then it's nice to it's nice to do it on, with a group of people. It's nice to be a part of a team, but also I feel like a duty to get to know like my literal neighborhood, even just like picking up the trash bins, knowing all the four homes that are next to me and knowing what their needs are. To me, that's just like that's that's very grounding. It makes me feel really powerful in terms of like, hey, this is my world. Like I
Hmm.
have influence on this. Maybe not what's on the news per se, but then again, that is how I could influence the
Yeah.
news if I do my part. That's on a bigger scale, that's pretty monumental if you think about it. If I can just care about the people directly next to me, um, that that is that's what I'm striving for. I'm not there, but I want to get there. And that's that's how I wanted to do things ultimately.
You're talking about this grassroots kind of movement, and it's not coming from somewhere else. Again, I recently wrote an article called "Finding the Others," and it's similar to what you're talking about. We're all leaders in our own sense, but it comes first from personal responsibility and maybe picking up the pieces around you first and sorting out your own life in these little ways and making it your true dream life. And you've done that with art and creativity, and now you're starting to branch out more. You're reaching out to your neighbors, you're helping them out, and also the community. And we make it all, what you're saying is it all starts with these small changes in our personal lives and then echoes out. It's not these grand things that happen out there, it starts right here. Or are there any personal practices that you use in your everyday life that help ground, that help you be in that place?
Absolutely. So one thing I'm really fortunate enough is my job is painting, like hours upon hours, 6 to 10 hours a day sometimes in a session. That's incredibly grounding. There is nothing else going on in my mind when I'm painting.
Wow.
And the other thing I would say is journaling. And I haven't been doing as great of a job recently as I'd like to, but that's been huge for me in my life is writing, journaling. And then I do read something to reflect on in terms of I'll read a couple pages from meditations, I'll read something from the Daily Stoic, or I'll just find in I kind of encourage anybody. I go back and I read meditations, the Gregory Hayes interpretation, which is the easiest one. I can't do the Taoist and deist. I'm a simple guy. I need just regular language. Someone might find the other interpretations more beautiful because it comes um, from Greek. But in there he says the the best way to cast out stress, and he lists some things is like one of them is like recognize how small you are and your place in this earth. The other one is study the cosmos, and then the third thing is contemplate on the vastness of time.
Hmm.
And all those things sound like so complicated, but it's really not. So for me, it's like go for a walk in nature,
Hmm.
think about how short life is. That gets me really excited to think about how short life is. Like, oh my God, number one, what's the pressure? It's over like tomorrow. So like let's do the thing. Let's just do the thing. No one's getting out alive. I'm not getting out of here unscathed. So
Yeah,
let's just do the thing that takes the pressure off. That gets me out of my head. And then connecting to the cosmos, which is nature, going for a walk and those things. So I know I listed a lot of things, but he kind of sums those things up, contemplating time,
yeah,
reflecting on the cosmos, and then just realizing like how fleeting life really is
yeah.
makes things kind of ridiculous if you think about it?
It's kind of weird. Yeah, people talk about we're walking around in these weird meat suits as evolved forms of chimpanzees, and it's like you might as well actually enjoy it and live your life to the fullest. But also, that takes a certain sense of responsibility. That doesn't mean we sit around lazily. It means we actually do things and truly fulfill our times with the things that we love. And you spend most of your days painting, it sounds like. It's you said 6 to 10 hour sessions sometimes. And my next question is, do you have any big influences for your artwork? Where does your inspiration come from for what you're painting?
Oh man, so many things, and it's just a buildup over time. I hate the term self-made man or like original or because like even like George Lucas, Star Wars, all of his stuff came from Kurosawa, the greatest samurai film producer of all time, some of the Seven Samurai, some of the greatest films of all time. And not that he stole it, but he was so heavily impacted by his time with Kurosawa that it's like there's no such thing as like a self-made man or like completely original. It's more of like building and handing off the baton from the great creatives. So when I was a kid, I thought that, I mean, comic books, oh my God, I still love comic books, anime, the Sistine Chapel, like all of it. I love the classical stuff like Michelangelo. I love anime. I love all kinds of art. So I can't say that there's like one thing or one person, but it also grinds my gears a little bit when artists like pretend that they're so original and they're so, uh profound in their meaning and message. It's like, I mean, I guess, but at the end of the day, there's been so many incredible people that have come before us who've influenced us. So
Mm.
even George Lucas, even Star Wars was impacted by many other things.
Yeah, it's funny to me how much your Stoic philosophy has impacted your view of life because you're like, stop being arrogant. We're going to die eventually. We've learned from the people around us. Everything in the past, our ideas come from the things in the past, and we shouldn't be so cocky about it. That's very funny.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even like Aurelius, it's really cool who wrote it, right? Because he's not just some regular guy. He's the emperor of one of the greatest kingdoms, a vast empire. And he said, one day my name will be forgotten. One day people won't recognize what I look like. And he had a literal cult that worshiped him. He had legions of, armies that he could send off. And even he was like, I'm gonna die. Like people will forget my name. Like I think that the little things are actually the big things. So my art is not that important, but it's important that I make it to me and to the immediate people around me and to that one particular public space or wall, the people that will be involved in that. And to me, like that takes so much pressure off. The more I can let go of my ego. Now, I think a little bit of ego is important. I want my art to represent me and what I stand for. I don't want to just be, oh, unattachment is beautiful until we stand for nothing and have no values and we're just kind of, oh, I'm unattached to everything and anything. Then you're not really, then you're just kind of pretending that your life doesn't have meaning at some point. So I think that I want to just put things out there and find that balance between what's important and what's not. But like, there's an easy way to be humbled in life. And it's like, I've been to Miami and California. I've seen the greatest artists of the world, and I'm not anywhere close. And I don't mean that in a self-deprecating way. I mean that I have work to do. And that's a beautiful thing. That's so great that I'll be in the pursuit of excellence and getting better forever. And I'm not arrived and I'm not going to.
Yeah, you're continuously learning and growing, and as they say too, we stand on the shoulders of giants. You're acknowledging the people before us, and you're acknowledging the people that you can learn from, and it's a continuous process. That's really really wonderful. I think it's sometimes easy for arrogance to kick in. Sometimes for me, it's like, oh, I got the degree, or I'm doing this thing, and then it starts to limit me from actual growth. I start to have like a set title for myself or a set job, and then I stop focusing on the growth. Okay, who can I learn from? What direction can I go next for that sense of self-expression? And like you said too, like it seems like we have this ego structure to so we can craft and mold it, similar to one of your artworks, a work of art. And it can be influenced by the world around us, and we can shape it the way we wish as well to truly serve our world.
Absolutely. And I think that the greatest athletes, artists, anyone has a growth mindset because it's that pursuit of excellence.
Hmm.
And to me, it's not really about a product or a result. That can be so daunting. Oh my gosh. Then I'm comparing myself and why doesn't my work look like this? And why doesn't my work look like that? And why am I not doing this? And then it's just really about me and my journey. And then that puts the ego to the side where I'm just obsessed with getting better and enjoying it, just having such a good time.
That being said, how do you personally know when a work of art is done? If you're painting this canvas, and what lets you know that it's done, it's complete?
So so in my business as a muralist, I have timelines and deadlines. So I gotta get it. I call it the 90% rule. And what I do is I get about 90% done and then I step away from it for a couple days and then I come back to it. And to me, like if there's nothing I can add that's gonna make it significantly better and everything's clean and looks good, then I'm done.
Hmm.
It's you if you overwork something, you're gonna keep changing it and it's gonna stray away from the design. And to me, it's like getting really close to being done, stepping away, and then deciding if I want to add anything to it. But to me, it's like it's pretty clear when something is done. I think in my field, it might be more not easier, but less complicated than like writing a book. You can always add another chapter, you can take this out, you can a film or writing a story or producing a movie, but to me, it's like I have this wall, how can I use this space? And once I've designed it, that's pretty much it. Once I've told the story, that's pretty much it.
So you already have some limits there. You're working within some limitations, the guidelines from the person that wants the mural, and then the wall itself and the space. You're probably matching the colors and the designs of the space as well. So you're already working within some limit and then creating from that. And I have one buddy who always says like you know he's a music producer. He makes songs for a living, but he knows when it's complete. There's something there where he describes this feeling of knowing exactly there's this feeling that he gets from it where doing terribly describing it, but the feeling that you get when it all culminates and it's all perfect and it's there and you know it. And I'm curious if you have a similar feeling with painting something.
Yes, and you know when is it's really like another thing is like, and it's a great metaphor. So I was just working on a project I was in South Carolina and I was painting on this busy street. And every morning I would drive up to the mural site and I could see it on the corner from like 2 miles away, like through multiple streetlights. So as I'm getting closer every morning, kind of driving slow, people are honking their horn, and because I'm wanting to see it from the perspective of someone who's driving by,
Mm.
because when I'm painting, it's so in my face.
Mm.
So sometimes, like in life, we got to step back and look at the mural itself because the way it's designed, a mural is not the same way as like when I do a canvas piece or something smaller where it's here, it's far away. It needs to look good and it needs to be inviting from a distance. So as I was driving up, I remember the last morning, I was like, I think I'm done. I've hit that 90% rule. And so I tidied some things up and that was it. And that
Mm.
was it. And I was done that day. I was done with that project.
Man, that's beautiful. And that was in where again?
Oh, in Columbia, South Carolina.
Got you. Okay. Is there anywhere specific so people can see what you made?
Oh, gosh, I'd have to find the street name and where it is. I'm horrible with directions. It's on my Instagram. I think it's my second to the last post. I just got back in town.
Okay. And I also can't help but to notice again the philosophy that you put into this. You were saying zooming out. And that's also very similar to the Stoic philosophy. It's like the Stoic philosophy is totally immersed in your art and vice versa. You have to zoom out and make sure other people are also seeing this in a certain way. And it's not just your narrow view of seeing it very close.
Absolutely. And isn't that a great way to live? It takes off all the pressure. It takes off the pressure. Like, there's gonna be millions of people have lived before us, and we're on this blue mostly water planet and it's weird on a 20-degree axis or whatever and weird atmosphere so we could be livable. And I mean, it's just a nice way to live. Take the pressure off. Like, I'm one of many, many, many artists who are just trying to serve and make something awesome. At the end of the day, it's like, how lucky am I? How lucky are we to experience life? And then it's over. So, I mean, if I get in my head, uh, really, if I just zoom out, I can get out of my head and get back into what I'm doing.
Would you say that's a spiritual practice for you, being able to zoom out?
Yes, it is because I think that I can feel like when that anxiety is mounting, it's like,
Mm,
wow, I'm making myself more important than I need to be. And let's make it a game. So I call it more of a mental crutch maybe than I do a spiritual practice. But yeah, I mean, spirituality is how we relate to the universe and others around us, right? And our place in this given moment in time and what we've been given. So I guess it's kind of both. So yeah, I would say so. I don't think too much about that part because I don't want to make my existence any more grandiose than it's supposed to be. Then I'll start getting I'll start getting anxiety about my existence and and why I'm here and unanswerable kind of questions. But yeah, I would say that's definitely a mental practice for me. One thing I ask myself is this, probably the most useful thing I've ever asked myself, and I ask myself this all the time, is when I'm frustrated or even recently, honestly, like it's difficult. I commend anyone who's built any kind of business or doing anything creative or just anything on your own because it's very difficult in terms of figuring things out. And I ask myself this, I say, okay, this may be true, but does it serve me?
mm.
And when I ask myself that, it's like, okay, I'm having this problem with this client or this project. Okay, that might be true, but is my frustration really serving me? Is it doing anything for me, or am I just throwing a pity party?
Yeah,
And even the good stuff, like, hey, oh, I'm super proud of this. Okay, that's true, but does that serve me? Is that stopping me from pushing my limits or focusing on this next assignment that I have? So that's just something that I continually ask myself.
yeah, that's beautiful reframing. You're taking that step back and realizing, okay, there's a challenge here, and I don't have to take it personally. I can reframe it to something that's an opportunity to grow, rather than something that the ego gets upset about and closes me off and makes me fearful and anxious. And you do a wonderful job at switching the perspective to, hey, it's an opportunity, and we can zoom out, and we can all work together. And that came from maybe your teamwork in healthcare and stuff. Um,
That is one thing that is incredible that the people I've worked with are so incredibly mission oriented and stoic. Their level of resilience on the job is remarkable. I worked with my last boss. He was just incredible. The amount of things that I would view as a fire, he would view as an opportunity or just something that happened. Okay. All right. Well, what's getting upset had little I think that it's interesting because it's not that he was non-emotional. I think it was just how he interpreted things was like, okay, I can get upset and sure, and he did get frustrated at times, and we all do. But if it doesn't serve us, then it's gonna make it worse. Then it's like about, okay, if something's on fire, me getting upset about it isn't gonna douse the flames. We got to take action. Got to stop and kind of figure out what's the best move and do our best and then douse the flames in a timely manner. That's pretty
yeah,
much healthcare with blood and guts.
100%. No pun intended. And there is also the sense of maybe entrepreneurs or business owners. That's almost the entrepreneur route is creative in a way, I want to say, where you're truly taking responsibility and allowing the business itself to be an outpouring of you. So maybe that's what your boss was doing. It's making sure that he's calm and he can put out his own fires so he can be there for the people around them. And again, you've done this with your own entrepreneurial work as well through art. So my question now is entrepreneurship an art form, I suppose? Can it be viewed that way?
I, yeah, that's a great question. I would say, art is such a big word, right?
Ooh, yeah, okay.
So it's hard to say. What is the definition of art? What is it? I think it can be. I think that yes, because you're designing something, right? So anytime you're designing something is an art in itself, if it's led with passion. You know what's really interesting is in one of my master's level like econ classes, some of the business classes that I took, I didn't realize this, like a mission for a business isn't just profit. It could be also to serve a community. It could be also to carry out the mission statement and like as long as that's measurable. So it's not just about like making money. And that made me think about yeah, so I would say entrepreneurship is definitely a an art form. I would say absolutely. And you would think about like it kind of blurs into your life. So you're designing your life on your terms and trying to figure that out. So I would say, yeah, absolutely.
And it seems to me like you promote a very good balance too. It's logic and structure and orientation, and at the same time creativity. I think we can also get lost in the creative flow and then never have the structured outlet to put it out. I think sometimes entrepreneurs and artists struggle to find that balance as that you're talking about.
Yeah, so I would say I think I'm good at that balance, but there are times where there is a season to be unbalanced. There's a season to gear in, to step on the gas pedal, and there's a time to take it back. I think life is a series of short sprints and rest, not just a sprint, and it's not just rest. So the right amount of resistance, like working out over time, you will, I will become who I'm supposed to be and grow.
Hmm. Yeah, you're mentioning these short sprints and seasons. That's a very Tao Te Ching kind of quote. There's a season for push. There's a season for relaxation. There's times for all of these things, and I guess that returns to the concept of natural order or nature. Maybe somewhere along the line, humanity kind of got separated from these natural ways of living and going along with the seasons. And you mentioned, I think that nature has a big impact on your artwork as well and in your life. Taking a walk, just taking a walk in nature and being around nature. And I see it in your artwork too. But what do you think about that? Nature impacting us?
Man, man, this is such a big conversation to have. I think that is there any, narrow it down for me a little bit, Max, because I'll go off into 10 different things. In which way do you want to discuss how nature impacts us?
Sure. And maybe uh, let's go with how does it impact your art specifically? How
Yeah,
do you add art?
I would say nature is beautiful. Like if I can paint it, it doesn't need me trying to express how I feel and how I look at nature and the actual birds and the I'm doing a mural right now with birds and butterflies and things. Me, number one, it impacts me because I don't have to design anything. I'm just trying to interpret how I feel and how I see the nature. So number one, I'm basically it's inspiring me and it's my literal design. And number two, when I reflect on it, I can only do as I do. So that also takes the pressure off. My cat doesn't think. Oh, am I good enough at being a cat? He just is. Oh, I'm gonna chase this fly in the house. Oh, I'm gonna eat. Oh, I'm gonna nap. There's no judgment. So the closer we can get to non-judgment, the closer I can get to not judging myself and just being. Number one, I can just paint freely. I won't be like all in my head, like, oh my gosh, is it good enough? Oh my goodness. It's just like, well, this is how I make it. So it's good enough.
I think that's really well said, and that's kind of the question I was getting at too. Is is there a natural way of being that allows for true creativity? And it sounds like that's what you're saying. It's a natural outpouring of you. Um, but yeah, it is kind of wrapping up here. Is there any messages that you have maybe for aspiring artists uh, that are also wanting to do something similar?
Hmm. I would say like whatever, I'll speak for myself. Everybody's got to figure out what works for them. My thing is that like if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it.
Hmm.
If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. If I'm gonna do it, I may take a big swing and a miss, but if I'm gonna paint something, let's give it a try and let's put ourselves out there. Because if not, then you always just kind of wonder, well, what if? Or even from my designs, I want my designs to be over time. I want them to be a little more risky, a little more challenging, so that I can grow with it. I don't really want to do the same thing over and over. I want to look when I'm old man in a rocking chair and be like, I really tried to put myself out there. And so
Hmm.
my advice is just like, just cliche as it sounds, go for it and take big swings again and again. Um, I think is being a creative, being an entrepreneur is learning how to get kicked in the nuts over and over again and say, I'll have another.
It's true. Again, it's constantly learning. You can take the hit and get back up. That's very funny. That's well said.
A really good friend of mine, he said, I'm in the business of collecting no's because he's like, if I can get 100 no's, somewhere in there is going to be a yes. So I think just like, oh my goodness, there's still times, and it gets less and less as I get more established. But I remember in the beginning, like nobody really cared about my designs. Nobody, hey, can you paint just this? It's like, okay, but I want to paint this. So what I did was what I um what I did was I built a wall in my backyard to paint on because no one would let me paint
Mhm.
on their establishment or their business. But I really wanted to do it, so why not? So I'd say just do it however you can.
You're saying also get rejected as much as you can because that's where the learning comes in. If you don't, if people are saying no, then that lets you know maybe where to improve sometimes or where the opportunities are coming about, or you create a new opportunity for yourself, which is creating that art in your backyard. Are there any big projects that you have coming up lately that you're excited about?
I would say that every single one I'm really excited about. And the reason for that is it's a new opportunity with that client, with that public space, with that environment for me to um, push myself, grow, and learn. So each one I'm extremely grateful for. So I couldn't say there's a singular one. Each one is vital.
Hmm, that's beautiful. And anything, maybe community projects or anything like that?
Yes, by nature of the job, it's all community because it's in public spaces. And so my work is geared a lot more towards like places where youth are involved, gardens, things like that. So I'm as we talked about for the Arc Gateway, I'm doing a series of murals for them that are centered around therapy, gardening, growth, learn while you play elements, behavioral health. So I'm excited about that.
And where else can people see your artwork, specifically around the Pensacola area where we are?
Oh man, so In downtown, Khan's restaurant on Palafox on Jefferson, Disco Lemonade, Sabai Thai on Jefferson. That's downtown on the backside of Easygoing Gallery. Several of the Pedro's locations, Pedro's Taqueria and Tequila Bar, and that's just what I can remember. Nico's Hibachi. That's just what I can. I'm horrible at recalling stuff on the spot. You kind of put me on the spot, but all my stuff is most of my projects are on Instagram.
Man, this is
Art by Andreu. So,
there you go. And say that one more time. Where can everybody find you?
oh yeah, on Instagram at art by and then my last name Andreu, art by Andreu.
Beautiful, man. Any final messages here for everybody?
Um, don't try too hard.
Relax. Beautiful, man. It was good talking with you. Thank you for being here. This was a very philosophical conversation. I expected it to be more geared towards art, but it turned out very philosophical. And I was very excited about it. Thank you, man.
Oh, absolutely. I really enjoyed it and I hope to do it again.
Let's do it.